Salve a tutti, benvenuti al subito di scienze agrarie e ambientali e abbiamo qui due ospiti. Abbiamo appena finito di una conferenza sugli O.G.M, e appunto organismi geneticamente modificati è il titolo della conferenza. Abbiamo appunto qui due ospiti che li presenterà lei.
Ciao a tutti, siamo in compagnia di Jonathan Latham, il direttore della Bioscience Research Project, e Nicola Defarge, un ricercatore che si è occupato a lungo di O.G.M. Partiamo con prima una domanda per conoscervi. Che cos'è il Bioscience Resource Project? What is Bioscience Research Project?
So, thank you. So we are a non-profit based in Ithaca, New York in the US, and we do research, scientific research into the food system. So we do research on pesticides and GMOs, and what we do is we're interested in the food system because it's the center of so many things that are of concern today, like the climate change, like biodiversity loss, like the quality of drinking water, the quality of rivers. All of these are basically determined, if not entirely, but in large part by the food and agriculture systems that we have.
Thank you. Defarge, vorremmo chiederle invece in che cosa consiste il suo lavoro di ricerca.
Okay, so I am an academic researcher, I am a molecular biologist and also toxicologist. And I and my colleagues from the CRIGEN, we investigate the effects on health of the major contaminants that you can find in food or water. And one of them are pesticides. So, and the major one is Roundup, because Roundup is also used on 80% of the GMOs that are grown worldwide. So we make studies, mostly on human cells, but time to time with rats, to investigate the health effects. The reason why is that we think that the regulatory assessments made, for example, by the European Food Safety Agency or even the EPA in the US are not scientifically sound. So we investigate the effects on health of Roundup, the major pesticide used, and we'll also investigate the effects of GMO that is Roundup ready.
Ok, thank you, grazie mille.
Allora, in questo convegno che troverete in sovraimpressione sono stati toccati molti aspetti sugli O.G.M appunto. E quali sono le prospettive più importanti che si intravedono in questo futuro, in questo tipo di futuro, appunto sugli O.G.M e sull'agricoltura in generale, insomma?
Well,
What are the future perspectives on the use of O.G.M or GMO, or maybe the research, how the research should move?
well, as for me, I am a scientist, so I work on the facts, not on the promises that are made by Monsanto, Syngenta, and others. And what I see, and it is still the case for most of the new patents on GMOs, are that GMOs remain pesticide plants, whether they tolerate a herbicide, whether they produce an insecticide, or they do both. So I think I will go on investigating the effects on the pesticides that are linked to the growth of GMOs. And maybe in 20 or 30 years I will make the toxicological assessment of a GM that could be drought resistant or something like this. But I think that I will go on working on pesticide issues, because Monsanto and others still go on selling the GMO and the associated pesticides.
Thank you, Dr. Latham. Do you want to add something?
Yes, for sure. The thing that interests me that is kind of been in the news a lot is new breeding technologies called gene editing. So the publicity around gene editing is that this is a very precise change, one or two DNA nucleotides different from the from the parent variety. So the idea is that this will not be GMO. This will be some friendly breeding technology which will not present no hazards. Right? So the problem for us is that most of this appears to be public relations. So we know already that the crops, at least for the crops, bred with this technology, that they use tissue culture. Now, tissue culture introduces tens or hundreds or usually thousands of mutations into the genome of these plants. So, the story that you get is that they're introducing one mutation, but probably it's more like 1,000. And then the other issue for us of this technology is that you have to introduce DNA in order to do this editing. So this DNA comes from a bacterium, and it encodes for an RNA, which is a guide molecule to supposedly target the place in the genome where the editing is supposed to happen. And then the other DNA that needs to be introduced codes for the protein that does the cutting. So this requires the introduction of a whole collection of pieces of DNA, some of which encodes the RNA, some of which encodes the protein, but then it all has to have control sequences and so forth, and these will be integrated into the genome of these plants. So essentially, in order to do gene editing, you have to create a GMO in the first place, right? And so the publicity is that this is not a GMO, but it's going to be very difficult for anybody to prove otherwise. And so basically, this is an attempt to get around the GMO regulations rather than an attempt to make breeding safer.
Ok, thank you for this. Grazie mille. Abbiamo ancora un'altra domanda che ci chiedevate. Dato che in questo convegno, che troverete comunque in sovraimpressione e nell'info box, sono state affiancate due parole di per sé molto contrastanti, biologico e O.G.M. Come possono integrarsi?
Well, the definition first is that if it is organic, there was no use of pesticides. As I told you, GMOs still today, 99.9% are pesticide plants, so it cannot come together. In the future, in fact, I don't know. What I see is that us, academic researcher, we have less and less money because you are more the national fundings goes to huge European projects, and we see that most of these fundings go to programs that are performed with industries like Monsanto, Bayer, Syngenta, and so on. There is, I think, a more modern way of making agriculture, which is called agroecology. But this receives only 1% of the European fund project, which is a bit sad because maybe GMOs are adapted to the large fields that exist in the US or in Argentina, but in Europe, not only in my Normandy, are more small fields. So GMOs doesn't work. You need to have high yield on a small surface. And this is where agroecology is very efficient, much more than this model with GMO, pesticides, fertilizers.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to add something about organic and GMO together?
Yeah, I would add to what Nicolas said and say that, for me, there's a philosophical discrepancy between the philosophy of GMOs, which is basically taking power by the companies from the farmers, right? So they're asserting their intellectual property rights and their patent rights over these crops to make the farmers farm in certain ways, to make them buy seeds in the future and so forth, right? So the philosophy of GMO is to take power to the companies, and the philosophy of alternative agriculture like organic and agroecology is to give that power back to the people who live on the land, or the people who want to eat that food and maybe who need the the power and are some way dispossessed of those kinds of political powers. Right? The people who have not very much is to get it. The idea is to get it back to them. But the reason why we're discussing this issue is that organic and sustainable methods of agriculture are incredibly necessary, and the companies would like to have some of that public credibility for their GMOs. They have this industrialized method of agriculture. They use all these chemicals. They want to have uniformity in the food chain, and they want to remove people from the agricultural system. But what the people like, by and large, is the opposite. And so the companies are trying to take some of the goodwill that belongs to organic agriculture and take it for themselves and argue that there's not really a discrepancy and an inconsistency between them. But to me, the inconsistency is so enormous that they can't do that.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interview. Grazie mille per questa intervista.
Noi appunto vi ringraziamo. Noi vi rimandiamo al video in sovraimpressione per quanto riguarda il convegno, e poi troverete sempre in sovraimpressione il secondo video, che sarà appunto la stessa intervista fatta però ai professori dell'Ateneo che hanno partecipato al convegno. Quindi noi vi ringraziamo, commentate, condividete se volete, e alla prossima. Ciao.
Ciao.